Sarah, Brent, this is Washington's way of reining in the tech industry, or at least a first step in doing that. Many see Apple as having a monopoly over the smartphone market, with more than half of Americans using an iPhone. So why is that? This lawsuit says it's not because the iPhone is necessarily a better product, but instead that Apple is purposely limiting your options.
Connecticut joining the Department of Justice and more than a dozen other states to take on one of the most powerful companies in the world in a courtroom showdown that could decide the future of big tech.
The state of Connecticut has sued Apple Inc. for abusing its monopoly power to hurt competitors, to restrict choice for consumers, and ultimately to raise prices on consumers.
In a press conference Thursday, State Attorney General William Tong sided with the DOJ, saying Apple broke antitrust law by preventing competitors like Samsung from developing apps and services used on the iPhone, even if it meant savings for the consumer.
There's no denying how dominant these devices and the iOS ecosystem, which Apple developed and owns and dominates, is important to us.
The lawsuit says raising prices while placing restrictions on other companies allowed Apple to monopolize the smartphone market and generate record profits.
If you want the latest and greatest phone, $1,500, $1,600. It's outrageous, honestly. It's so expensive for Connecticut families to have to think about that.
In just the last fiscal year, the DOJ says Apple recorded net revenues of $383 billion and a net income of $97 billion, more than any other Fortune 500 company.
They make more money than anybody else.
Which is why these leaders say a check on big tech is needed to give more options to smartphone users and make sure the rules of the marketplace are followed.
This really comes down to choice, competition, and price. And I think that's why there's this lawsuit today.
And this all comes as there's a growing push right now by members of Congress to regulate big tech at large, social media companies included. If the DOJ wins in court, it has not ruled out the possibility of potentially breaking up Apple to create more competition. And Brent and Sarah, we should note that Apple stock already feeling the impact of this. Shares dropped more than 4% since this announcement.